There are two personality types that often find each other, collide with each other, and sometimes destroy each other without ever understanding why. The Shadow Empath and the Covert Narcissist. On the surface, they look nothing alike. One feels deeply. The other hides deeply. One sees through people. The other hides behind people. One absorbs emotions. The other manipulates emotions. But when these two meet, something unusual happens. It's not just attraction. It's not just conflict. It's a psychological mirror, a reflection of wounds, instincts, and survival strategies that were shaped long before adulthood. This is the story of two people who learned to read the world in opposite ways, yet were shaped by the same emotional storms. A shadow empath is not the stereotypical soft, gentle, endlessly giving empath. They feel deeply, yes, but they also understand the darker side of human behavior. They can sense motives, insecurities, hidden emotions, and unspoken intentions. They don't just feel what others feel, they understand why they feel it. A shadow empath is often shaped by early exposure to emotional chaos, unpredictable caregivers' environments, where reading people was a survival skill, learning to sense danger before it arrived. This creates a person who is emotionally intelligent, intuitive, and perceptive, but also guarded, skeptical, and sometimes drawn to the darker side of psychology. They don't fear the shadows, they study them. So, what is a covert narcissist? A covert narcissist is not loud, arrogant, or obviously self-centered. They are quiet, sensitive-looking, insecure on the surface, and often appear misunderstood. But beneath that exterior lies a fragile ego, a deep need for validation, a hidden sense of superiority, passive-aggressive manipulation, emotional withdrawal as punishment, subtle forms of gaslighting. They don't dominate rooms, they dominate emotions. They don't shout, they guilt. They don't demand admiration, they extract it through sympathy, confusion, or emotional dependency. And their power is subtle, their manipulation is quiet, their wounds are weaponized. But why are shadow empaths and covert narcissists drawn to each other? Because they recognize something familiar in each other. The shadow empath sees someone who is hurting. The covert narcissist sees someone who can feel their hurt. The shadow empath thinks, I can help them. I understand them. The covert narcissist thinks, they understand me. They won't leave. Both are wrong, but for different reasons. The shadow empath's mistake. They confuse emotional insight with emotional responsibility. The covert narcissist's mistake. They confuse emotional understanding with emotional supply. This creates a dynamic that feels magnetic, but is built on wounds, not compatibility. The shadow empath senses the covert narcissist's insecurity and pain. The covert narcissist senses the empath's emotional depth and acceptance. It feels like connection. It feels like understanding. It feels like destiny, but it's actually trauma familiarity. The covert narcissist mirrors the empath's values. They appear vulnerable, open, and emotionally deep. The shadow empath feels seen. They feel chosen. They feel needed. This is the hook. The covert narcissist begins to shift the dynamic. Guilt-tripping, silent treatment, passive-aggressive comments, emotional withdrawal, playing the victim, rewriting events, creating confusion. The shadow empath senses the shift, but instead of pulling away, they analyze it. They try to understand. They try to fix. They try to heal. This is the trap. The empath becomes drained. Their intuition becomes clouded. Their self-worth becomes tied to the narcissist's approval. Meanwhile, The covert narcissist becomes more dependent on the empath's emotional labor, yet resents them for it. This is the breaking point. But why the shadow empath eventually sees the truth. Unlike other personality types, the shadow empath has a unique advantage. They understand darkness. They don't fear manipulation. They recognize it. They don't fear emotional games. They decode them. They don't fear silence. They analyze it. Eventually, the empath sees the pattern. They see the inconsistencies. They see the emotional extraction. And once they see it, they cannot unsee it. This is the awakening. And why the covert narcissist fears the shadow empath? Because the shadow empath is the one person they cannot fully control. The empath sees behind the mask. They sense the insecurity. They understand the manipulation. They recognize the emotional patterns. And worst of all, they can walk away. Nothing terrifies a covert narcissist more than someone who understands them and refuses to play the game. And in this scenario, there are only two endings. Ending 1. The empath leaves. They reclaim their energy. They rebuild their boundaries. They grow stronger. The narcissist feels abandoned, misunderstood, and exposed. Ending 2. The empath transforms. They stop trying to heal others. They stop absorbing emotional chaos. They stop confusing intuition with responsibility. They become more selective, more grounded, and more self-aware. Either way, the shadow empath evolves. The covert narcissist repeats the cycle. In the end, shadow empaths and covert narcissists are not opposites. They are reflections of different responses to emotional pain. One learned to feel everything, the other learned to hide everything. One became intuitive, the other became defensive. One became emotionally intelligent, the other became emotionally fragile. Both were shaped by wounds, but only one grows from them. And the real question is not who is more powerful. The real question is who is willing to face their own shadow. The shadow empath already has. The covert narcissist rarely does. And that is what ultimately separates them.